For those just joining us, welcome to California Classical Association South Fall Conference. Our next guest is Callum Armstrong, a musician from the UK. He grew up playing Scottish bagpipes and studied recorder and baroque oboe at Trinity Conservatoire of Music and Dance in London. Since 2015, he has been researching Aulos reed, making and playing techniques in order to learn how to play the aulos in a historically informed manner. Some of Callum's other projects have been to develop a polyphonic technique for double and triple Scottish small pipes and composing new music for them. Callum is very happy to present this talk to the CCA South on the aulos and his recent work and research on this ancient musical instrument. Welcome, Callum. Are you here?
I'm here. Hello.
Wonderful.
Nice to see you. Shall I crack on?
Yes, please.
Crack on. Thank you. Okay, let me share this PowerPoint. Partager le son de l'ordinateur. Okay. Now, can you see that? Does that work?
Yes, I can see that. If you could make it bigger somehow, that'd be great. Perfect.
Good. So you could see it as playing Aulos reconstructions, right? I've got the right one. Yes. Great. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. I would just like to say thank you to your president, Bettina de Guzman, for inviting me to give this talk today. This is not going to be so much of an academic talk. This is more of a practical one on some of the things I've noticed with Aulos. So firstly, I'd like to begin by asking the question, what is an Aulos? In the literature, an Aulos is simply an ancient double pipe that uses reeds. It has been up until fairly recently been translated in literature as a flute, but if you want to, but this term is not such a good one, I think, as flute sort of describes in English a traverse flute. And in fact, a traverse flute in antiquity is called a plagiaulos. And if you want, an aulos is always a double pipe in antiquity. If you play a single pipe, it has to be called a mono aulos. This is a picture of a mono aulos. And we have some various pictures here. This is the pizza panel. We have also the thing which drew me to Aulos was the fact that we have surviving instruments. Now, in medieval, if we go back through a time period in history, by the time you get back to the medieval period, there's only fragmentary evidence of musical instruments that actually survive. So it was quite a shock to me to discover that actually there are many pipes from antiquity that survive. And this is what drew me to the project, because what's amazing is the fact that we can go to a museum, find a musical and a surviving instrument, measure it, and then make it work. Here is an example. This is here are the two Megara pipes, which you can see in the Municipal Museum in Megara. These instruments have very wide bores. Here is another two fragmentary examples you can see in Athens at the National Archaeological Museum. And here are some reconstructions that we've made based off of them. Here is a copy of the Louvre Aulos by Robin Howe, a very great musician and instrument maker who lives in Canada. Here is a copy of the Megara Aulos made by Max Brumberg. And here is a copy of the Pergamon Aulos, again made by Robin Howe. So these instruments are intact enough that we can measure them and recreate them. Now the question is we have the instruments, but we don't really have many surviving reeds. and as we will discover in a minute, the reeds that were used were almost certainly double reeds. What type of reed? There are two types of reed which we normally use with woodwind: single reeds or double reeds. Now, a single reed is like a type of reed you would find in a clarinet or an oboe. No, sorry, a clarinet or bagpipes or launedas. They look a bit like this. This is a bagpipe reed, actually. It's a bagpipe drone reed, a Scottish bagpipe drone reed. And we have double reeds too, a bit like this here. This is a baroque oboe reed. And if we look at the pictures from antiquity, we can see that quite clearly double reeds tend to be shown on a lot of the imagery. So how do we make these reeds? There are several ways that we can construct a double reed. The most common is that we're used to nowadays is taking two pieces of cane from a tube, which we cut up and splice, and putting them and then binding them onto a metal tube. And this is very common in classical Western musical performance. Oboe and bassoon reeds both use this method. And there's also, however, in folk instruments around the world, we find many examples of another type of double reed, which is called a crushed reed. And we find these in duduk playing and hichuriki playing. Duduk from Armenia, hichuriki from Japan. And this is in fact the style that we believe Aulos reeds were made. And I'm going to show you a basic, when I got into this, the first thing I had to work out was sort of how to make the reeds. And I followed the guide that the scholar Stefan Hagel came up with. And it goes like this. You take a piece of cane, you season it for a couple of years, and then what you do is, here's my cartoon cane. You cut it in half, and the tip here, where it's split, it's a double pipe instrument. We need two reeds, right? So what we do is we're going to make two reeds from the two halves of cane. We cut the piece of cane in the middle, and then we where we've cut it, that's going to be where the cut happens. That's going to become the tip of the reeds, of both of the reeds. So what we do is we take the cane, we scrape the bark off of each side after we've cut it in half, like this. So we go from this rather shiny exterior to this sort of more dull underlayer below the bark. And then we're going to make this binding in the middle here. It's like a waist. We're going to form this waist. So you'll see this done in other reed making. We take the cane like this and a pot of boiling water. And what we do is we throw the piece of cane into the boiling water. And so by doing this, it becomes soft. I should also mention that you soak the cane normally for a period of about 24 hours to 72 hours. I found this works rather well, depending on how the cane is, how hard the cane is. It starts to soften and becomes saturated. So when we throw it into the boiling water, it becomes even softer. And when we do this, it becomes soft. We take it out of the boiling water. And then we take a ligature, we put one end of the ligature onto a large solid object that's not going to move too well, and the other end we connect to our belt or something. And then what we do is we lean backwards and we apply pressure to the cane. And we gently twist the piece of cane between our fingers and roll it, and we form this waist. Then what we do is we ease off the pressure, and as we do that, we wind some cord around the waist in order hold the weight, so the cane doesn't spring back. And then we end up with something like this. And now what we need to do is we have to form the blades of the reed. So we need to make it look like this. So we take the piece of cane again, we take back our boiling water, and we throw the piece of bound cane into the pot of water. And it becomes soft again, and then we take it out, and we squash the top of the cane to form this shape. This is sort of the end result. Here we have several reeds of different sizes for various different Aulos. One question, which I won't go into too much details right now, is what species of cane do you use? Because there are various species of cane. I'm writing a paper with Dr. Caleb Simone at the moment, and I think we hope this will be published at some point next year. But the most likely candidate for Aulos reeds is Phragmites australis. And this is a common weed that grows everywhere over the Mediterranean, Europe, and in fact, it's, I believe, a invasive species to the United States. It commonly grows everywhere. You'll find it clogging up ponds. You'll find it growing on the sides of roads. Here we go. This is a rather nice picture of a landscape in Norfolk with some Phragmites cane growing. It's this one. You'll probably recognize it. This was a bit of a shock because Arundodonax, which you can see on this picture here on the right, this is the usual type of cane we now make most double reeds and in fact single reeds from in classical Western music. It grows more uniformly as it reproduces asexually, and that's been common practice to make reeds from Arundodonax rather than Phragmites for a very long time in Western classical music. When we form the reeds, that's the first part. The second part is where it becomes interesting. We have all sorts of problems to overcome. You'll notice this clamp on the top of the reed. This is rather important. Here you'll see a very fresh reed that has been formed. And obviously, you put this clamp on the top and then it dries out. And it stays shut like the example on the right. But the problem is when you moisten the reed up again, it starts to open up, and it will want to pop back into the shape of the that it was originally in, so a tube. And we've tried various methods to stop this happening. Now you see in modern reeds, we get around this quite a lot by putting a metal binding, like as you see on the example on the right. And on the left, we toasted that reed on the left, and the toasting holds the reed in shape. Now with toasting the reed, what we found was that the reed it holds its shape, but it kind of wears out fairly quickly if you toast it. When you put a metal binding around, that will also keep the reed shut, but the problem is you lose the flexibility of tuning that you need to keep two double reeds going at once. And the method that I've come up with that works the best is simply just to play it a lot. When it pops open, when you first start playing the reed, the reed pops open, it becomes really wide, and you have to cap the reed again after maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And slowly, little by little, the more you play it, the more it retains this sort of closed shape. And if we look at a quote from Theophrastus here, the reed cut becomes usable after long years and requires much playing in advance of being used for performance. But the mouth of its reed tongue closes its lips, which they say is useful for carrying through. And this is the, I would say that this is the reed mouth, and the reed tongue is the vibrating membrane of the reed. And it's true that as the reed opens up, as you play it, the sound becomes less, it becomes more diffuse. You need the back of the reed to stay rather shut while you play, so that otherwise you lose, as the reed opens up too much when you're playing it in, you lose the harmonics, and the sound becomes, it can become quite grating, and as the harmonics go out of tune. So these reeds take a long time. I find that with some cane, it will take 6 months before it's ready for a concert. It's a really long playing in process, which we're not used to. And I'm yet to find another way of speeding this up, but the ancient sources seem to show that the reeds were never, the reeds did in fact just take a long time to play in. I'm going to just demonstrate a few musical examples of this. If you can't hear this, Bettina, please just tell me immediately, and we'll reset. I'm going to just show you a difference on this reconstruction of the Pergamon Aulos. The difference, firstly, between a reed made of Phragmites australis and a reed made of Arundo donax. And you'll hear a very big difference in the sound. So I'm just going to play this. So you hear in the first clip, which is the Phragmites reed, that we have quite a full sort of plummy sound, very stable. That reed, by the way, had only just been formed, and it was able to produce such a sound. Whereas the Arundo donax reed, you can hear the sound wavers quite a lot. It's got a slightly more grating sound to it. And that reed had been played in for 6 months. It took it 6 months for it to become usable just to that standard. So this is at least part evidence in a practical way, well, perhaps, to show that the Phragmites works better in alloy, I would argue. And I think as well, if you have a space and an amphitheatre like this one at Delphi, the Phragmites reed, it's much louder and it's more likely to carry through to the back rows of the seats. I'm going to give you some more musical examples. These are Phragmites reeds again, and this is on a similar early instrument to the one you've just heard. And I just want to show you the first example, which is a little Dr. Caleb, Simone and me, we've reconstructed a melody from Orestes, the Lament Mode Ode 3. And this was, you'll have to excuse my rather poor singing, but this is, I've multi-tracked myself many times singing, and then I have created an Aulos accompaniment underneath. So I find that the Aulos with the Phragmites reed on it really creates a nice underpinning for you to sing over the top, and it's very comfortable to sing over the top of this sound. it gives you a really rock solid bed, and you don't feel so exposed when you're singing over the top of such an instrument. And the second clip is, what's the second clip? This is the same instrument, and I want to demonstrate. We have this low sort of like clarinet-like register, but we can also make the instrument overblow. And with the Phragmites reed, I found that the harmonics are very much in tune, and it's much easier to tune it and produce a very nice overblowing effect. So I'll just give you a little sample of that. Here is another clip with reeds from a later instrument. The first two instruments are, sorry, the Bettina, the instrument you've just heard, is a 4th century instrument, and this is a later Greco-Roman style instrument, and it has a much greater range. The early instruments have a range of about an octave, and this is a range, if it overblows, of actually sort of closer to 3 octaves. I'm just going to quickly talk about playing techniques, because I'm conscious I'm running out of time. How to hold the instrument. You'll notice on a lot of these images that they're not playing on the fingertips. They're playing on the middle pads of the fingers like this. And there's a reason for that, I believe, which is that the stretches required on alloy are vast. They're much bigger than most modern wind instruments. And playing on the middle pad of the finger, normally for someone with small hands like me, facilitates a much larger stretch. And just to give you an example of how big the stretches are, we have a treble recorder here. And you can see that next to a rather large instrument like the Megara, you can see with the left, you would normally, one hand would cover those top 3 holes there. And the Megara stretches almost the entire length of a treble recorder finger hole. So 2 hands to play the treble recorder, and 1 hand to basically cover the same space on the alloy. They have really large hole stretches, and there are some instruments which have larger hand stretches than even this. So I found it's much more comfortable to play like this, like you see in a lot of the iconography, than on the fingertips. The fingertips, I find, puts the hand into a rather awkward position, like this. It's much more comfortable on the pads, like this. Fingering, there's 3 types of fingering normally used in wind playing. The first is open fingering, which involves removing one finger one after another, like this, which is what many wind instruments use. The problem is that with alloy, because you only have one hand to support one pipe, if you use this, you're likely to drop the instrument. So you could use, for example, covered fingering, which is where you lift one finger up at a time, like this. However, I find that this kills some of the harmonics and alters the blend between the 2 pipes. And what I found is that using a semi-open or closed fingering, where you essentially lift up fingers and then replace fingers below the melody hole, a bit like you can see on the screen now, seems to be a more optimal approach, because it gives you stability always when you're holding the instrument, and actually it keeps the two pipes more balanced. You get a better harmonic sort of blend, and you actually see sometimes on the pots these sorts of semi closed fingerings used. Circular breathing, there's not really any evidence for circular breathing. However, you'll see on a lot of the pops, people with puffed cheeks. It will even be spoken about sometimes in the literature. Circular breathing is a technique it's a wind playing technique that creates a continuous flow of air. The player blows normally, and then when you want to take a breath, what's happened here? And when the player wants to breathe, he or she uses the air stored in the cheeks to continue the sound whilst breathing in through the nose. So it kind of looks a bit like this. That's a quick example. There's sort of, sometimes you see little hints that it might have been in the literature. From notwithstanding all these things, our leads in general utterly miss the mark of the order of attunement, and seldom do they hit their target despite doing all these things, including even separating the sound and bringing it together and augmenting or withholding the breath. That's an interesting thing, and applying the other catalysts. One other thing I'll talk about before I stop is what is the forbea. Forbea, you'll see it a lot. It's this leather strap, which you see a lot of the players wearing. I believe in Greek, it also means like the leather strap you use to tie up your horse. And I started experimenting with this, and what I found is it greatly improves the sound quality. It makes the sound really much sweeter, and it just makes everything better. Most players on the depictions, you always see wearing this leather strap. It also supports the embouchure a little bit when you're circular breathing or something, and it helps. It helps the sound to be more stable. I found this. One of my friends pointed this out to me. This is by a funny quote by Cicero, and this is the only quote I found which kind of shows that the ancients may have thought that forbea makes a better sound as well, which is what I found. What our friend Gnaeus is thinking of, I have to clue for. Still he puffs with no dainty pipe, with a savage blasts, restrained by no forbea. So that's a sort of quick rundown of a little bit of what I've been up to over the last few years. Bettina, do I have enough time to quickly demonstrate just a sort of a big piece, or should we do questions? Or
are you going to do a live demonstration?
I won't today because I've had. But I can. The sound quality over Zoom I found in this room is not so good with performance. But I could hit the play button and I could give you a demonstration of a fragment. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Sure. I mean, we're running into we've cut into the Q&A section, but perhaps people can start typing in their questions now as we're listening to your demonstration. That would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow. Well, I'm pretty sure that we are all astounded by that. So thank you so much, Callum, for the very informative talk and for that demonstration. So let's take a look here at some questions or comments. Rasaba Champi, can you briefly talk about in which specific occasions was the Aulos played and to what effect?
Aulos was pretty much used by all levels of society in many different formats. It was used to accompany exclusively tragedy. It was the instrument of choice for tragedy. It was used at symposia, and people from every class played it. It's a bit like Scottish piping. Everyone from every class in Scottish society plays Highland pipes, and in the same way, Aulos was. So, aristocrats learned to play it in ancient Greek society, and the poorest person in society played it. And it was used for dancing accompaniment too. Various rituals in temples, pretty much everything. Yeah.
Fabulous. We have a comment here from Owen Doonan. Spectacular playing. Many thanks.
Thank you very much.
And one from Armand Dangur. Incredible performance in Aulos. Thank you, Callum. Could you say something about the rhythm of that last piece? Evidently, the rhythm of the frogs croaking.
That was actually Bellarmine exercise. That was one of the Bellarmine exercises. That was the Bellarmine exercise is they're short musical fragments from antiquity, and they're passed down through I think Byzantine sources. And there are short musical phrases that Stefan Hagel has proposed, I think, as sort of like almost like little etudes for a beginner Aulos player to learn. And that one is it's written in the document, I think it's paragraph 101, and it's the 8-beat. That's the translation, is the 8-beat one, but it's actually in 9. And I think there's research to show that perhaps, I think Stefan thinks perhaps it was some of the notes were sped up so that actually it is an 8-beat. And there's another theory, I think, by Perlman, that in fact it's the word, it's actually an 18-beat. I'm sorry, I can't. I've forgotten exactly the intricacies of that. So the opening phrase was the melody, and then I wrote I made an arrangement of it to demonstrate kind of the polyphonic possibilities of the Aulos. Yeah.
Okay. Armand clarifies. Yes, octadecasemos, 18-beat overall.
That's it. Yeah.
Octadecasemos. There you are.
Thank you, Armand.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Armand. Looks like that's it for the Q&A. If there are more that pop up, please go ahead and just type your answers. Thank you so much, Callum.
Thank you for having me.
Spectacular. And I'm looking forward to my reads coming in.
They will be with you rather shortly.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we will be taking a quick 3-minute break and be back for Annalise Bear.